The dust clouds of Kepler 442c swirled around the research vessel Terra Nova. As it touched down on the barren planet's surface, Dr. Alex Martinez pressed his face against the small window, watching the red and orange landscape stretch out before him like a forgotten dream. The planet had been dead for thousands of years, but something about it called to him in ways he could not explain. "Are you sure about this place?" asked Dr. Lisa Wong, checking her equipment one more time. She had been Alex's research partner for 5 years, and she knew that look in his eyes. It was the same look he got right before he did something dangerous and stupid. "The scans don't lie," Alex said, pulling on his environmental suit. "There are structures down there that are older than anything we've ever found. The metal composition doesn't match any known civilization in the galaxy. This could change everything we know about ancient history." Lisa shook her head but followed him toward the airlock. "Famous last words," she muttered under her breath. The surface of Kepler 442c was worse than the scans had shown. The wind howled across the empty landscape, carrying particles of sand that scratched against their visors. In the distance, strange rock formations jutted up from the ground like broken teeth. But it was what lay beneath the surface that had brought them here. The entrance to the ruins was hidden under a thick layer of crystallized sand. Lisa worked for 3 hours to clear it away, their tools barely making a dent in the hardened material. When they finally broke through, a soft blue light spilled out from the opening below. "That's not possible," Lisa said, staring at the light. "There's no power source on this planet. Nothing has been alive here for millennia." Alex was all ready, climbing down into the hole, and we're about to find out what's keeping the lights on. The tunnel led down into a vast underground chamber that took their breath away. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed to move when they looked at them directly. Strange patterns flowed across the surface like living things, changing color from blue to green to silver. But it was the center of the room that made Alex's heart race. A cluster of crystal formations rose from the floor, each one taller than a person. They pulsed with the same soft light that had drawn them down here. The crystals were perfectly clear, like frozen water, but inside them something moved. Shadows danced within the crystal hearts, forming shapes that almost looked like people. "Alex, don't touch anything," Lisa warned, but her voice sounded far away. She was busy recording everything with her scanner, trying to document the impossible. Sight before them, Alex moved closer to the largest crystal. The symbols on the wall seemed to grow brighter as he approached. He could feel something pulling at his mind, like a voice calling his name from very far away. The crystal was beautiful, more beautiful than anything he had ever seen. It was warm to look at, like sunlight on a cold day. "The readings are off the charts," Lisa said, her voice tight with worry. "Alex, whatever this is, it's not natural. We need to call for backup before we do anything else." But Alex was no longer listening. The crystal sang to him, a wordless song that filled his head with images he did not understand. He saw stars being born and dying. He saw great ships sailing between worlds. He saw people who looked human but were not quite human, doing things that seemed impossible. Flying without wings. Moving mountains with their thoughts. Healing the sick with a touch. "Alex," Lisa's voice cut through the visions. "Step away from that thing." Alex reached out his hand. The moment his glove touched the crystal surface, the world exploded into light. Images flooded his mind like a broken dam, releasing water. He saw Earth as it was long ago, when humans were different than they were now. These ancient humans could do things that modern humans had forgotten were possible. They could speak to each other across vast distances, without words. They could heal wounds that should have been fatal. They could move objects with their minds and bend space itself to travel between stars. But then came the fear. Other races in the galaxy, older and more established, watched humanity with growing alarm. The humans were too powerful, too unpredictable. They fought wars that tore holes in reality itself. They changed the courses of rivers and moved planets from their orbits. They were like children playing with weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. A council was formed. Representatives from across the galaxy came together to decide what to do about the human problem. Some wanted to destroy humanity completely. Others suggested enslaving them. The final decision was different. They would seal away humanity's power, lock it deep in their genetic code where it could not be accessed. They would make humans forget they had ever been more than ordinary beings. The process was carried out in secret. Humans across the galaxy suddenly found their abilities failing them. Children were born without the gifts their parents had possessed. Within a few generations, the memory of what humanity had once been was lost entirely. The humans became a normal species bound by the same physical laws as everyone else, but the seal was not perfect. It was designed to be temporary, a punishment that would last until humanity proved they had grown beyond their destructive nature. If they could demonstrate wisdom, restraint, and the ability to use power responsibly, the seal would break on its own. The crystal chambers were left as triggers, waiting for the day when someone would find them and begin the awakening process. Alex felt all of this rushing through his mind in seconds that felt like hours. When the visions finally stopped, he found himself on his knees in front of the crystal, Lisa shaking his shoulders. "Alex, talk to me. What happened?" He looked up at her, his eyes wide with shock and wonder. "Lisa, we're not what we think we are. Humanity, I mean. We used to be. So much more. What are you talking about? You've been unconscious for 10 minutes. The crystal did something to you." Alex struggled to his feet, his mind reeling from what he had seen. "We had powers, Lisa. Real powers. We could do things that would seem like magic to us now. But they were taken away from us because we were too dangerous." Lisa helped him stand, her face full of concern. "Alex, you're not making sense. We need to get you back to the ship and run some medical scans." "No, you don't understand." Alex looked around the chamber with new eyes. This place, these crystals, they're not just ruins. They're a key. Someone left them here for us to find when we were ready. As if responding to his words, the crystals began to pulse brighter. The symbols on the walls moved faster, and Lisa's scanner started beeping frantically. "We're picking up some kind of energy transmission," she said, staring at her readings. "It's broadcasting on frequencies we've never seen before." "Alex, what did you do?" Before Alex could answer, his communicator crackled to life. Captain Jake Phillips' voice came through, tense and urgent. "At Terra Nova, we're receiving priority transmissions from Earth. Something's happening in the colonies. Reports of unusual phenomena, people claiming impossible abilities. Command wants all research teams to return immediately." Alex and Lisa looked at each other. The timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. Captain Alex said into his communicator, "Request permission to stay and continue research. I think what we've found here might be connected to what's happening in the colonies." "Negative, Dr. Martinez. Orders are to return to base immediately. We'll send a full research team back later if necessary." As they climbed back up to the surface, Alex could feel something changing inside him. It was subtle, like a door opening in a part of his mind that had always been locked. He could sense Lisa's emotions more clearly than before. He could feel the vibrations of the ship's engines through the ground beneath his feet. And somewhere, very faintly, he could hear voices calling across the vastness of space. The seal was breaking, and there was no way to stop it now. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez was checking the evening patrol reports when the meteors started falling toward Mars Base Alpha. The warning sirens screamed across the red landscape as chunks of rock and ice hurtled down from the dark sky above. Amy ran toward the main shelter, but she knew they would never make it in time. The meteors were too big and moving too fast. "All personnel to emergency stations," came the voice over the intercom. "Meteor storm incoming. This is not a drill." Amy looked up at the burning streaks of light racing toward the base. In a few seconds, they would hit the main buildings and kill everyone inside. Something inside her chest felt hot and angry. She would not let her people die, not like this, not when she could do something about it. She raised her hands toward the sky and screamed. Light poured out of her fingers, forming a glowing shield above the base. The meteors crashed into the barrier and exploded in showers of sparks, but none of them made it through to the ground below. Amy held the shield for 10 minutes until the meteor storm passed. When she finally let her hands drop, she collapsed to her knees in the red dirt. Around her, the other soldiers stared in shocked silence. "Rodriguez," said Sergeant Bill Cooper, his voice barely a whisper, "what the hell did you just do?" Amy looked at her hands. They were still glowing faintly with golden light. "I don't know," she said. "I just knew I could do it." 3,000 miles away on the mining station orbiting Titan, Foreman Pete Johnson was having problems of his own. The drilling equipment had broken down again, and his crew was scattered across different sections of the massive facility. It would take hours to coordinate the repair work using normal communication systems. Pete closed his eyes and reached out with his mind. He could feel his workers like distant candle flames in the darkness. Without speaking, he sent them images and instructions. Where to find the spare parts, how to reroute the power systems, which tools they would need. His crew moved with perfect coordination, working together like parts of a single machine. The repairs that should have taken 12 hours were finished. And two, how did you know what we needed before we even asked? Asked drill operator Nancy Kim as she wiped grease from her hands. Pete shrugged. He was not sure himself. "Lucky guess," he said, but they both knew it was more than that. Similar reports were coming in from human settlements across the galaxy. On the farming world of New Eden, crops were growing 3 times faster than normal after the farmers started talking to their plants. On the space station, orbiting Jupiter, engineers were fixing complex machinery by laying their hands on broken components and somehow knowing exactly what was wrong. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her office on Luna Station, reading report after report of impossible events. Each one was more unbelievable than the last, but they all had one thing in common. They were all happening to humans. Her communicator buzzed. "Admiral, you have a priority message from the Galactic Federation Council?" Kate straightened her uniform and activated the holographic display. The alien face that appeared was one she recognized. Ambassador Zethkari of the Vorthok Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful races in the galaxy. "Admiral Sullivan," Zethkari said, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "We need to talk, immediately." The Federation Council chamber was a massive sphere floating in space near the galactic core. Representatives from hundreds of different species gathered here to make decisions that affected trillions of lives. Kate had been here many times before, but never under circumstances like these. She sat alone at the human delegation table while alien faces stared down at her from every direction. The air was thick with tension and fear. "Admiral Sullivan," said Council Speaker Vexthal, a being that looked like a giant crystal tree, "we have received disturbing reports about your species. Humans displaying abilities that should not be possible require an explanation." "With respect, Speaker," Kate replied, "I don't have one. These events are as much a surprise to us as they are to you." Ambassador Zethkari leaned forward in his chair. "Perhaps it is time for the truth. Your species was not always as it is. Now, long ago, humans possessed abilities that made them very dangerous. We were forced to take action to protect the galaxy." The chamber fell silent. Kate felt her heart racing. "What kind of action?" "We sealed away your powers," Zethkari continued. "We locked them deep in your genetic code, where they could not be accessed. It was the only way to prevent your species from destroying everything around them." Kate stood up, anger burning in her chest. "You did what?" "You had no right to change us without our consent." "We had every right," said Commander Crextel of the militant Dominion faction. "Your ancestors were monsters. They moved planets from their orbits for fun. They started wars that tore holes in space itself. They were a plague that had to be stopped. But the seal was not meant to be permanent," said a new voice. Kate turned to see a being of pure light floating near the back of the chamber. She had never seen anything like it before. "I am Lexandra of the Nexari," the light being said. "My people opposed the sealing from the beginning. We believed that humanity deserved the chance to grow and learn, not to be crippled out of fear." Speaker Vexel's branches rustled with annoyance. The Nexari were outvoted. The decision was made by majority consent. "The decision was wrong," Luxandra replied. "And now the seal is breaking on its own. The ancient humans built safeguards into the genetic lock. If humanity could prove they had evolved beyond their destructive nature, the restrictions would lift naturally. Kate looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces. Some looked afraid, others looked angry. A few looked curious about what would happen next. "So what happens now?" she asked. Commander Krexthal stood up, his armor clanking. "Now we must decide whether to let your species continue this dangerous awakening, or whether to take more permanent action to protect the galaxy." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some species wanted to help humanity learn to control their returning abilities. Others wanted to quarantine all human worlds immediately. The most militant factions called for preemptive strikes before humans became too powerful to stop. While the Federation argued, more humans across the galaxy were discovering what they could do. On the frontier world of New Montana, a young woman named Casey Brown found that she could walk through solid walls when she concentrated hard enough. First, she thought she was going crazy, but the ability was too real to ignore. Casey lived alone in a small cabin outside the main settlement. She spent her days working on her family's ranch, taking care of the cattle and maintaining the equipment. It was a simple life, but she liked it that way. Everything was changing. She practiced her new ability in secret, learning to control when she became solid and when she did not. She could also sense things that were far away, like knowing when a storm was coming hours before the weather system appeared on scanners. Sometimes she could even see glimpses of things that had not happened yet. Casey was not the only one learning. On Earth, Dr. Alex Martinez was working day and night to understand the visions he had received from the crystal. With Dr. Lisa Wang's help, he had started translating the symbols they had found in the ruins. The ancient writing told the story of humanity's forgotten past and contained instructions for something called awakening disciplines. "These aren't just random exercises," Alex explained to Lisa as they worked in their laboratory. "They're training methods. The ancient humans developed ways to use their abilities safely, without losing control or hurting other people." Lisa studied the translated text on her computer screen. It talks about something called harmony meditation and quantum field awareness. "What does that even mean?" "I think it means they learn to work with their powers instead of just using them," Alex said. "Like the difference between forcing a door open and finding the right key." Their research was interrupted by an emergency communication from Admiral Sullivan. Her face appeared on their screen, looking tired and worried. "Doctors, I need you to accelerate your research immediately. The Federation is considering military action against human settlements. We're afraid of what we might become if our abilities continue to strengthen." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "How long do we have?" "Maybe days, maybe hours. Some of the more aggressive species are already mobilizing their fleets." After the transmission ended, Alex and Lisa worked faster than ever before. They had to find a way to help humanity control their awakening abilities before the aliens decided to stop them permanently. Meanwhile, in the deepest parts of space, ancient sensors were detecting the changes in human consciousness. Machines that had waited for thousands of years were finally coming online, preparing to release knowledge that had been locked away since before recorded history began. The awakening was spreading faster now, touching humans in every corner of the galaxy. Soon there would be no way to hide what was happening. Humanity would have to choose between learning to master their returning powers or facing the consequences of galactic fear. The blockade ships appeared overnight around Earth's orbital stations. Massive alien vessels with weapons that could crack a planet in half positioned themselves like a metal noose around humanity's homeworld. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched from Luna Station as the Federation fleet cut off all trade routes and communication channels. "They're not answering our calls," reported Communications Officer Tony Martinez. "All human shipping has been ordered to stop. Any vessel that tries to leave Federation space will be destroyed." Kate clenched her fists. The aliens had moved faster than anyone expected. Within hours, similar blockades had appeared around every major human colony. Millions of people were now trapped, cut off from supplies and medical aid. On Earth, General Roy Thompson stood before a room full of military leaders in the Pentagon. His face was hard as granite as he addressed the assembled officers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at war," he said. "The aliens have shown their true colors. They kept us weak and stupid for thousands of years, and now they want to finish the job. Colonel Frank Davis raised his hand. Dar. What about the reports of humans developing new abilities? Shouldn't we be focusing on understanding those instead of preparing for battle? Thompson slammed his hand on the table. Those abilities are exactly why we're in this mess. We should be using them to fight back, not sitting around trying to understand them. If we can move objects with our minds and create energy shields, then we can damn well use those powers to defend ourselves. The room erupted in arguments. Some officers agreed with Thompson's aggressive approach. Others worried that military action would only make things worse. The debate raged for hours while outside. The alien blockade grew stronger. Meanwhile, on the dead world of Kepler-4 for to see, Dr. Alex Martinez was getting sicker by the day. The crystal contact had changed something fundamental in his brain, and his body was struggling to adapt. He could barely stand for more than a few minutes at a time, and his vision came and went in waves. The neural activity is off the charts, Dr. Lisa Wong said, studying his medical scans. It's like your brain is trying to process information that it wasn't designed to handle. Alex gripped the edge of the lab table to keep from falling. The visions keep getting stronger. I can see things that happened thousands of years ago. Ancient humans building cities that floated in the air, healing people who should have died, traveling between stars without ships. You're killing yourself, Lisa said. We need to get you to a proper medical facility. No, Alex gasped. We're so close to understanding. The texts we've translated, they contain training methods. If I can just figure out how they controlled their powers. Lisa watched her friends suffer and felt helpless. She had always been the practical one, the voice of reason. But reason seemed useless when faced with the impossible things that were happening around them. On the frontier world of New Montana, Casey Brown was having better luck. The young rancher had discovered that her abilities worked best when she was calm and focused. She could phase through solid matter, but only when she was not afraid or angry. When her emotions ran high, the power would slip away from her. She had been practicing in secret for weeks, learning to control her breathing and clear her mind. The cattle on her ranch had become used to seeing her walk through fence posts and barn walls. They barely looked up anymore when she did things that should have been impossible. Casey was repairing a broken water pump when she felt something change in the air around her. A tingling sensation ran down her spine, and suddenly she could sense things that were very far away. She saw alien ships moving through space toward New Montana. She saw weapons being charged and soldiers being prepared for battle. She ran to her communication system, tried to contact the settlement, but the aliens were jamming all frequencies. The attack would come soon, and no one would be ready for. Sheriff Danny Clark was checking the main street of New Montana's only town when Casey burst through the door of his office. She looked wild and desperate, her eyes wide with fear. "Sheriff, you have to evacuate everyone right now," she said. "Alien ships are coming. They're going to attack the settlement." Danny looked at the young woman with concern. Everyone knew. Casey Brown was a bit odd, living alone on her ranch and talking to her animals, but she had never seemed crazy before. "Casey, slow down. What are you talking about?" "There are no alien ships in this system." "I can see them," Casey insisted. "I don't know how, but I can see them. They'll be here in less than an hour." Danny was about to dismiss her warning when his deputy, Megan Foster, came running in from the street. "Sheriff, we've got a problem. Communication systems just went dead, all of them, and there are strange lights in the sky." Danny and Megan followed Casey outside and looked up. In the distance, they could see silver shapes moving between the stars. The alien fleet was already here. The attack began without warning. Energy beams lanced down from the ships, striking at the settlement's power grid and communication towers. The aliens were not trying to kill anyone yet, but they were making it clear that resistance was futile. "Everyone to the shelter," Danny shouted, but Casey grabbed his arm. "That won't work," she said. "Our weapons can punch through anything we've built, but maybe we can do something else." She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, trying to contact the other people in the settlement. To her surprise, she found that she could touch their thoughts, just barely. Most humans still had their abilities locked away, but the stress of the attack was starting to break down the barriers. "Everyone hold hands," Casey said. "Trust me." The people of New Montana formed a circle in the town square as the alien ships hovered overhead. Casey could feel their fear and confusion, but she could also feel something else. A spark of power in each of them, waiting to be awakened. "Think about protecting each other," she said. "Don't think about fighting back. Just think about keeping everyone safe." The energy that flowed through the linked humans was unlike anything Casey had experienced before. It was warm and bright and infinitely gentle. When the alien weapons fired again, the beams struck an invisible barrier and scattered harmlessly into the sky. The alien commander, a Krextal warrior named Zarkon, stared at his weapons display in confusion. His most powerful guns were having no effect on the human settlement. Energy readings showed that the humans had somehow created a defensive field that his sensors could not even detect properly. "Increase power to maximum," he ordered his weapons officer. The ship's main cannon charged up and fired a beam that could have destroyed a small moon. The beam struck the barrier around New Montana and simply vanished, absorbed into the field. Like water into sand, on the ground the humans felt the attack but were not harmed. The shared power that flowed between them was strong enough to protect them from anything the aliens could throw at them. "This is impossible," Zarkon growled. "How are they doing this?" His science officer, a pale creature with too many eyes, checked his instruments. "Commander, the humans appear to be using some form of collective consciousness. They are linking their minds together to create a unified defense." Zarkon had heard stories about the ancient humans and their impossible abilities. He had dismissed them as myths and legends. Now he was seeing the truth with his own eyes. "Withdraw the fleet," he ordered. "We need to report this to the High Command immediately." As the alien ships pulled back, the people of New Montana slowly released their hold on each other. They looked around in amazement, realizing that they had just done something that should have been impossible. "How did we do that?" asked Megan Foster, staring at her hands as if they belonged to someone else. Casey smiled for the first time in days. "I think we just remembered what it means to be human." Word of the successful defense spread quickly through the human underground networks. Despite the communication blackout, people found ways to share the story. Some humans discovered they could speak to each other across vast distances using their minds. Others learned to send images and emotions through quantum fields that the aliens could not monitor. The victory at New Montana gave humanity hope, but it also increased the pressure. From the Federation, the aliens had been afraid of individual humans with powers. Now, they were facing the possibility of humans working together as a unified force. The war was just beginning. But for the first time, humanity had shown that they could defend themselves without hurting their attackers. The question now was whether they could maintain that restraint as the conflict escalated. Dr. Alex Martinez collapsed again in his laboratory, blood trickling from his nose as another wave of ancient memories crashed through his mind. Dr. Lisa Wong rushed to his side, but she could see that he was getting worse every day. The crystal contact was burning out his brain faster than his body could heal. "I can see it all now," Alex whispered, his voice barely audible. "The whole truth about what we used to be. Lisa, the seal they put on us? There's a failsafe built into it." Lisa helped him sit up against the wall. "What kind of failsafe?" "If humanity could prove they had evolved beyond their warlike nature, the restrictions would lift automatically. The ancient humans who designed the seal knew that their descendants might grow wiser with time. They left us a way out." Alex's hand shook as he pulled up the translated text on his computer. "Look at this passage. It talks about a great test. If humans could demonstrate power combined with restraint, if they could choose peace over violence even when they had the strength to destroy their enemies, then the genetic locks would release completely." Lisa stared at the glowing symbols on the screen. "Are you saying that what happened at New Montana was part of this test?" "I think so." Casey Brown and the others didn't just defend themselves. They showed mercy. They could have turned those alien weapons back on their attackers, but they chose not to. That's what the failsafe was waiting for. Meanwhile, in the Federation Council chamber, the debate had reached a boiling point. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat alone at the human delegation table while hundreds of alien representatives argued about humanity's fate. The humans must be stopped before they become too powerful, declared Commander Zarkon, still bitter about his defeat at New Montana. We have seen what they can do when they work together. If we wait any longer, we may not be able to contain them at all. Perhaps containment is not the answer, said Lexandra, the Nexari representative. Her light form pulsed with calm energy as she addressed the council. The humans at New Montana had the power to destroy your entire fleet, Commander, yet they chose only to defend themselves. Does this not suggest they have learned the wisdom their ancestors lacked? Ambassador Zethkari of the Vorthok Empire raised one of his 4 hands. The Nexari speaks truly. In all our records of ancient human conflicts, we find no examples of such restraint. Perhaps these modern humans are different from their predecessors. Or perhaps they are simply hiding their true nature, snarled General Veximer of the militant hegemony faction. We cannot risk the safety of the entire galaxy based on one small act of mercy. The argument continued for hours, but Kate could see that the council was dividing into 2 clear camps. One side wanted to give humanity a chance to prove themselves. The other side wanted to end the human threat permanently. Finally, Speaker, Vextel called for order. We will put this matter to a vote. All in favor of the immediate military solution? 200 alien hands rose into the air. Kate felt her heart sink. All in favor of continued observation and peaceful contact? 198 hands rose. Kate closed her eyes. They had lost by just 2 votes. Now the motion carries, Speaker Vextel announced. Military action against human settlements will begin immediately. Admiral Sullivan, your people, have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally and submit to permanent genetic modification, or face total annihilation. Kate stood up slowly, her face pale, but her voice steady. Speaker, I respectfully request permission to contact my government before you proceed with this ultimatum. Granted, but understand that this decision is final. There will be no further negotiations. As Kate left the council chamber, Lexandra's voice whispered in her mind. Admiral, do not despair. The test is not over yet. Your species still has a chance to prove themselves, but it must come from all of humanity working together, not just a few brave souls on a frontier world. Back on Earth, General Roy Thompson was preparing for war. The human military had mobilized every available ship and weapon, ready to fight the alien coalition with everything they had. But his plans were interrupted by an emergency communication from Admiral Sullivan. General, the Federation has given us an ultimatum. Surrender and submit to genetic modification or face complete destruction. We have 72 hours. Thompson's face turned red with rage. Like hell we will. We've got humans all over the galaxy developing impossible abilities. It's time to use them. General, please listen to me. There might be another way. Dr. Martinez has discovered something about the nature of our awakening. If we can demonstrate restraint and wisdom on a global scale, restraint? Thompson shouted. They want to lobotomize our entire species, and you're talking about restraint? No, Admiral. We fight. We show them what happens when you back humanity into a corner. Kate knew she was losing him. Roy, think about what you're saying. If we respond with violence, we prove that the Federation was right to fear us. We become the monsters they think we are. But Thompson had already ended the transmission. Hours. He was mobilizing the human fleet for a preemptive strike against the nearest Federation blockade. The crisis deepened when long-range sensors detected massive alien battle fleets moving toward the Dominion was leading. A coalition of 12 species, bringing enough firepower to sterilize every human world in the galaxy. On the frontier world of New Montana, Casey Brown felt the approaching danger like a storm on the horizon. Her abilities had grown stronger since the first attack, and now she could sense events happening thousands of light years away. She saw the alien fleets moving through space like a cloud of death, heading for humanity's homeworld. She also sensed something else. Humans across the galaxy were awakening faster now. as if the approaching crisis was accelerating the process. Farmers on agricultural worlds were learning to speak with their crops. Engineers on space stations were fixing complex machinery with their thoughts. Doctors in hospitals were healing patients with the touch of their hands. But most importantly, she could feel their emotions. Fear, anger, and confusion were spreading through human space like wildfire. Some wanted to fight, others wanted to hide. A few were beginning to understand what Alex Martinez had discovered about the ancient failsafe. Casey made a decision that would change everything. She reached out with her mind, using abilities she was only beginning to understand, and touched the consciousness of every awakening human in the galaxy. The message she sent was simple, but powerful. We have a choice. We can become what they fear us to be, or we can show them what humanity truly is. Not monsters, not conquerors, protectors. On Earth, people in cities across the planet suddenly stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. They could feel something calling to them, a voice that spoke directly to their hearts. In space stations and colonies, humans paused in their work as the same message reached them. The response was immediate and overwhelming. From every human settlement in the galaxy, people began reaching out with their minds, linking their consciousness together in an unprecedented act of unity. Farmers and soldiers, scientists and children, all connected by the shared understanding that this moment would define their species forever. General Thompson felt the collective awakening like a wave washing over him. Fought on for the first time since the crisis began, he could sense the thoughts and emotions of humans across the galaxy. He felt their fear, but he also felt their hope, their desire not for victory, but for peace. His hand hovered over the button that would launch humanity's attack fleets. One press, and the war would begin in earnest. But as the collective consciousness of his species flowed through him, he realized that violence would only prove the aliens right. He pulled his hand back. In the depths of space, the Krexthal fleet received new orders from their homeworld. Intelligence reports indicated that the humans were attempting some kind of massive telepathic link. Command wanted the fleet to strike immediately, before the humans could complete whatever they were planning. Admiral Torkon, commander of the Krexthal fleet, was a warrior who had fought in 100 battles. He understood tactics and strategy, but what he was seeing from the human worlds confused him. Energy readings showed massive psychic activity, but it was not focused on weapons or defenses. Instead, it seemed to be creating something else entirely. "What are they doing?" he asked his science officer. "Unknown, Admiral. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases. It appears to be some form of consciousness merger, but the purpose is unclear." Torkin made his own fateful decision. "All ships prepare to attack Earth. We will not give them the chance to complete whatever ritual they are performing." The alien fleet moved toward humanity's homeworld, weapons charged and ready to end the human threat forever. But they were about to discover that humanity's greatest weapon was not their returning psychic abilities. It was their choice of how to use them. The Krexthal fleet emerged from hyperspace around Earth like a storm of metal and death. Admiral Torkin counted over 300 warships, enough firepower to turn the blue planet into glowing ash. His sensors showed millions of humans on the surface below, all connected in some kind of massive mental link that his science officers could not understand. "All ships, target population centers," Torkin commanded. "We end this threat now, before they can complete whatever they are planning." But as the alien weapons charged up to fire, something unexpected happened. The humans did not raise shields or return fire. Instead, the collective consciousness that Casey Brown had helped create reached out across space with a message that every alien mind could hear clearly. "We do not wish to fight you. We know you are afraid of what we might become. We understand why you sealed our powers away long ago, but we are not the same people our ancestors were. Let us show you who we are now." The voice that spoke was not one human, but all of them together. Farmers and soldiers, children and elders, scientists and artists, all united in a single plea for understanding. The aliens in the attacking fleet had never experienced anything like it. Admiral Torkon hesitated. In all his years of warfare, he had never heard an enemy ask for peace while staring down the barrels of weapons that could destroy them completely. "Admiral," his weapons officer reported, "our targeting systems are locked on to their major cities. We can destroy their entire population in minutes." "I know," Torkon replied, but his hand did not move toward the firing controls. On Earth, the linked consciousness of humanity felt the alien weapons pointed at their world. They could sense the fear and anger in the alien minds, but they also sensed something else. Doubt, confusion, a tiny spark of hope that maybe violence was not the only answer. Casey Brown, now serving as the focal point for humanity's collective awakening, reached deeper into the psychic link than she had ever gone before. She could feel every human mind connected to hers, billions of people all sharing the same moment of choice. "Them," she whispered to her species. "Show them what we can do with our power." The response was immediate and beautiful. Across the solar system, awakened humans began to work together in ways that had never been possible before. On Mars, the colonists used their combined mental abilities to terraform entire continents in minutes, turning the red desert into green forests and blue oceans. On the Moon, miners carved crystal cities from solid rock using nothing but focused thought. But most importantly, they did all of this while holding back their true destructive potential. The aliens watching from their ships could see that humanity possessed the power to move planets and reshape stars. Yet instead of using that power as a weapon, they were creating things of incredible beauty. Dr. Alex Martinez felt the collective awakening wash through his damaged mind like cool water. The burning pain that had plagued him for weeks suddenly vanished as thousands of other human consciousness shared the burden of the ancient memories. He was no longer alone in carrying the weight of humanity's forgotten past. "Lisa," he said to Dr. Wong, his voice clear for the first time in days, "I can feel it happening. The genetic lock is breaking completely. Not just for a few of us, but for everyone." Lisa watched in amazement as the readings on her instrument showed impossible energy levels, coming from human settlements across the galaxy. "Alex, the power output is off the charts. But it's not chaotic like we expected. It's perfectly controlled. Because we're doing it together," Alex explained. "The ancient humans tried to use their abilities alone, and it made them arrogant and destructive. But when we work as one mind, we balance each other out. The anger of some is cooled by the wisdom of others. The fear of many is overcome by the courage of a few." In the Federation Council chamber, the alien representatives watched their displays in stunned silence as reports came in from across human space. The humans were not using their returned powers to build weapons or conquer worlds. Instead, they were healing their damaged planets, growing food to feed the hungry, and creating art that could be seen from orbit. Ambassador Zethkari of the Vorthok Empire slowly stood up from his chair. "In all my centuries of life, I have never seen anything like this. They have the power to destroy us all, yet they choose to create instead." "It could be a trick," muttered General Veximer, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. Luxandra, the Nexari representative, pulsed with bright light. "This is no trick. I can sense their intentions clearly. They truly mean us no harm. They seek only to live in peace and use their gifts responsibly." Speaker Vexel's crystalline branches rustled with deep thought. "If this is genuine, then we may have made a terrible mistake. We sealed away their abilities because we feared they would become tyrants. Instead, we may have prevented them from becoming guardians." The debate in the council chamber was interrupted by an urgent message from Admiral Torkon. His voice came through the communication system, filled with wonder and confusion. "Council, you need to see what is happening here. The humans. They are not defending themselves in any way we expected. They're showing us something impossible." On the main display, the council watched as the human collective consciousness reached out to touch the minds of the alien fleet. But instead of attacking or trying to control them, the humans simply shared their emotions. Love for their families, hope for the future, sadness for all the years of fear and misunderstanding between their species. One by one, the alien ships began to power down their weapons. Even the most warlike Krextal warriors found themselves unable to fire on beings who radiated such genuine compassion. Admiral Torkin's voice shook as he made his report. Council, I cannot bring myself to destroy them. They're not the monsters we were told to fear. There's something far more dangerous to our old ways of thinking. They are proof that power and wisdom can exist together. The change that swept through the galaxy after that moment was unlike anything in recorded history. The genetic locks that had suppressed humanity's abilities for thousands of years dissolved completely. But instead of chaos, a new order emerged. Humans discovered that their awakened powers worked best when used to help others. Cities were rebuilt using matter manipulation, but only after consulting with architects and engineers to make sure the changes would benefit everyone. Diseases were healed through energy work, but the healers studied medicine and biology too. Understand what they were doing. Dr. Martinez led the first expedition back to Kepler-4 to see, where they found that the crystal chambers had activated fully. The ruins revealed themselves to be more than just ancient artifacts. They were a living library left by humanity's ancestors, containing vast amounts of knowledge about responsible power usage, ethics, and techniques for maintaining harmony between different species. They knew this day would come, Alex said, as he and Lisa explored the now glowing chambers. Our ancestors prepared for the possibility that their descendants would grow beyond the mistakes of the past. Federation voted unanimously to lift all restrictions on humanity and offered them full membership. The Nexari revealed themselves publicly as humanity's longtime supporters. While former enemies like the Krexthal requested cultural exchange programs, Admiral Kate Sullivan became the first human to serve on the Federation High Council. Where? She helped establish new principles of interspecies cooperation. General Roy Thompson, humbled by the experience of the collective awakening, disbanded his military forces and became an advocate for peaceful conflict resolution. Casey Brown founded the Academy of Awakened Arts on New Montana, where humans and aliens came together to learn the principles of conscious evolution. Students from across the galaxy studied not just how to develop psychic abilities, but more importantly, how to use them responsibly. The galaxy entered a new age of cooperation, with humanity serving as mediators in conflicts between other species. Their unique combination of power and restraint made them natural peacekeepers. Wars that had raged for centuries were ended through human intervention, not by force, but by helping both sides understand each other's perspectives. Years later, Dr. Martinez and Dr. Wong stood in the fully restored archive on Kepler-4 to see, reading the final message left by their ancestors. The words were carved in crystal that glowed with warm light. We sealed away our power not as punishment, but as a gift to our future selves. Only when you no longer need power for its own sake are you ready to wield it responsibly. You have proven that evolution is possible, that a species can grow beyond its destructive impulses. Welcome to your true heritage. Use it well. The message ended with instructions for finding other hidden archives throughout the galaxy, each containing knowledge that would help humanity guide other young species through their own awakenings. The sealed power had been set free, but more importantly, humanity had set free their own potential for wisdom and compassion. As Casey Brown often told her students at the academy, the greatest power was not the ability to move mountains or reshape stars. It was the choice to use that power to build bridges instead of walls, to heal instead of harm, and to unite instead of divide. Humanity had finally come home to who they were always meant to be.